Assalamu alaikum. This episode is the continuation of our 4 earlier episodes on the existence of God. In this regard, I will present and quote two meaningful and elaborate verses of the Holy Book of Quran. These verses beautifully and elegantly define the being of God. The verses says that no time in the past can be imagined in which God was not present. It means that God Almighty is the first one at the most, and similarly no time in the future can be imagined in which God will not be present. It means that God Almighty is the last one at the most. And it also clearly describes that the being of God is irrespective and devoid of any time frame. And similarly, nothing can be imagined above which God can be considered. It means that God Almighty is the apparent one at the most. And similarly, nothing can be imagined below which God can be considered. It means that God Almighty is the hidden one at the most. And it also clearly describes that the being of God is irrespective and devoid of any space limits. These verses define the understanding and present the understanding of the being of God so elegantly. And only these words should be used for the illustration of the being of God. As I have discussed it in our earlier episodes, and I have discussed it again in detail for better comprehension and to remove any ambiguity in this regard. I will request our viewer that if someone have to understand this discussion, he will have to connect it with our 4 earlier episode on this topic, and for the current episode